I'm Alexander Scott, and this is your festival report for April 2025. I don't know, I wanted to try this out as a little sporadic side project, because I go to a lot of movies. I like to talk about movies. I don't always feel like I have the most direct avenues for talking about movies like I like to. So I want to give myself an excuse to yap in your ear about things that I go and see and why I think they're important and why they might be important to you. You know, I'm a New Yorker, and there's no shortage of venues and opportunities for me to see new films from a wide range of artists and cultures here in the city. But, we also happen to have a number of film festivals that happen around here, big and small, and, those give us more opportunities to go and discover new talents and obscure subcultures, underrepresented cinema from countries that are, other than France and Japan. Although I also go to French and Japanese film festivals. And so here in New York, we have a range of those. Everybody knows the Tribeca Film Festival, or now it's the Tribeca Festival. They dropped the film. I would argue that film was never really important to it. But of course, real New Yorkers know that the real game is over at Film at Lincoln Center, where, of course, they have the big centerpiece, the New York Film Festival, where real heads go. That is in the autumn here in New York. But their other, little sister festival that Film at Lincoln Center likes to put on is New Directors, New Films. And I've been going to that for a few years now, later than I should have, for reasons I'm too embarrassed to explain. But again, when you're looking to experience new voices, new kinds of cinema, it's there. It does what it says on the tin. What do you want? So every spring, Film at Lincoln Center puts on New Directors, New Films. And again, it's exactly what it sounds like. What's funny is so this year is apparently the 54th edition of it. I guess they've been doing it for more than half a century. And this year, I've noticed more than in previous outings, they're really touting the fact that this has been a big launching pad for talent. Obviously, you're going to see a lot of things from people who you might not hear from again, but more than in previous years, I'm now seeing them specifically talking up that this was the festival that in previous years brought you Spike Lee and Christopher Nolan and Wong Kar-wai and Luca Guadagnino and Almodovar, Kelly Reichardt and Chantal Ackerman. It goes back that far. And that last one is it's particularly funny for reasons I'll get to in a minute. Given that, the common through line that I've been seeing is that every other new filmmaker has basically figured out that the shortcut to getting noticed at festivals is to ape Chantal Ackerman. I think that's sort of what I'm picking up on. From the several films that I've seen at the festival, I'm recording this after having just gotten back from the last film shown at least at MoMA, one of the two venues for the festival. Film in Lincoln Center and MoMA co-produce it and co-screen at their respective theaters. But, you see a lot of overlaps, I think, in each year. I think that things just sort of spring up in people's work. And this year, it should probably surprise no one, given just the tastes of audiences, art house audiences in general, that there's a lot of thought about generational trauma and, to some degree, class. But then, the thing I picked up on most is memory as a common through line on things in terms of how these films view the way that the mind and the memory works and captures and perceives things like the passage of time or the way that events happen, sort of in a Rashomon way from one perspective to another. And again, that, like the sort of popular flavor this year is slow cinema, in the vein of Chantal Ackerman and her ilk. And so, in fact, more than a few filmmakers in their Q&As specifically cite Ackerman in one form or another as being an inspiration for them. And, it shows. It's an inclination I wouldn't want to like poo-poo otherwise. But, after sitting through, let's see how, I would count at least 4 of the 7 or 8 features that I saw, and also a short film or two, actually also definitely cited Ackerman as a reference. You sit through enough of those, and especially a couple in one afternoon, and after yet another 7-minute unbroken shot of people driving around looking for a parking spot or making breakfast while longingly looking outside of a window, I don't know. Eventually you just want to say, hey, NYU Tisch, teach something other than John Dielman. Let's just get it all out of our systems. Enough. We get it. Not to be crass about it. But that's what I saw, because let's see, what did I pick up this festival? I'll just cite my little list here. So I saw the opening night film, which is a film called Familiar Touch by a new director named Sarah Friedman. It is a movie about an elderly woman put in a nursing home now that she's showing clear signs of dementia, by her son, played by H. John Benjamin. And the moment that I saw his face on screen, I was like, oh my God, is everybody else around here going to notice that was the moment he opens his mouth, everybody's going to be like, is that Bob Burgers? Is that the Burger Man from the Bob Burgers? That didn't happen, unfortunately. But again, it is a movie that, it could certainly delve or succumb to a fairly morose take on themes of aging. But instead, it plays with the idea that this is just another sort of phase of life. But, and also, like, to its credit, it doesn't do that thing that I think certain movies about aging made by very young people would do, where in order to try to sort of find an empathy or even frankly kind of try to portray a horror to aging, it doesn't do anything where like, oh, she's seeing things. Here's a weird hallucination she has. It doesn't do that. Instead, as I said, it plays with memory in a really particularly interesting way. Given that I've also just recently started this project with my A-Sides and Besides podcast, where we talk a lot about memories and anecdotes and how those things influence ourselves now and the way we identify ourselves, it struck me as particularly meaningful. But in this movie particularly, it uses memory in a very subtle way where you are still watching this character with dementia from the outside, but you're still sort of following more or less the way time progresses for her. And so you go from sort of scene to scene, and there is a kind of loss of perception of the passage of time. And you can't quite tell, like, is it the next day or is it the next week? Have I gone forward in time or have I gone back? And it puts you just out of place enough that you maybe can't empathize with the character. You're not in her head, but you are kind of living the world the way that she does. It's a clever trick, and I appreciate it. And so bravo to Sarah Friedman for this opening night film. I think it's a well-deserved credit to her. Saw other films, again, that were sort of in this slow cinema vein. Another one by a Venezuelan director. I don't seem to have it in front of me. Oh, well. Venezuelan film. It's a very short one. It's just over an hour long, called Lost Chapters. And it's also, again, it's slow cinema. Not a lot happens. You could call it a character piece, and even that I would say is maybe a little generous. It's a beautiful exercise. And that's the thing that I think is maybe sort of at the heart of a lot of these movies is these are young directors. These are people who are just starting out. And often for your first film, I would imagine you want to make as much as you can with what you have. But ultimately, these are sort of like calling card films, right? You want to show like, hey, here's the kind of vibes, the atmosphere, the performances that I can get out of a nothing budget. Hey, Hollywood, imagine what I could do with, $5 million. And certainly that comes through. You do see where these people have talent, they have a voice. I do think that the limitations of this slow cinema and an eschewing of any kind of overt narrative, it's got its pluses and minuses. I also saw I believe a Lithuanian film. It was called Drowning Dry. It was very good. It was very powerful. It also, again, sort of plays with memory in a way that I'm still kind of unpacking. It sort of felt like it was almost doing like a sliding doors thing, maybe. And it cuts back and forth in time a little bit. There's an, a chronological aspect, but also like without giving anything away, because I actually, it's something I would recommend very strongly. Look this up. It's called Drowning Dry. I'll have a snarky review for it on Letterboxd eventually. But it has a moment in the movie where you see, I guess, what it is trying to present as a diverging path. And it's hard to tell, is it sort of like a sliding doors thing of like, this is how it could have gone one way versus how it could have gone another? Or is it, the way that different characters remember the moment? I tend to think it's the latter is what the movie's going for. And it's interesting and it's subtle and it gives you, the viewer, a lot to sort of pick over. And again, it definitely sort of fits into the slow cinema category, but in a way that I think is playing more with those tropes, that style, in a way that I find fascinating and ingratiating, and still challenging. And the thing with a lot of these movies, again, I think it's something that Kelly Reichardt also does as well sometimes, where it'll be a movie where if anybody else were making it, like you would think, oh, this long shot, from a particular angle inside of a car means that we're about to like see a character, get hit by a truck. This long sort of silence between two characters means that either now or in the next couple scenes, somebody's going to try to like kill the other. And those things never really happen, or if they do, they happen off screen in a very, I think, one probably deliberate way in terms of, not wanting to give you spectacle, wanting to instead giving you the humanity of the in-between moments. But then also, you have to imagine, they can't really do the big spectacular car crash because who's got the money for that? Another film that actually I would say does not fit into slow cinema, thankfully, a good respite, is Cayuga Before Summer Ends. It's a Greek film made by, I guess, somebody who seems like they're a very much younger filmmaker who has probably done a lot sort of online. I should look them up, but I haven't yet. But it's a movie that instead I think does a good job of playing with, again, the elements of film. They were it's one of the few films I think that at least was touting itself as having been shot on celluloid on I believe 35 millimeter. And it shows. It's got a very beautiful look to it. It's capturing, boating around the Greek Isles. Who doesn't love that? And yet at the same time, it's also intercutting with, video as well. It's playing a little bit with chronology. It's playing a bit with the way that scenes can be cut and edited. And again, it's a movie where like a big explosive moment that might happen is instead played down in a way that I think reveals an emotional truth without having the emotional explosion. And it gives you a nice, open ending that, again, gives you, as if you're someone like me, you like to sort of have something to chew on afterward. And this was good for that. So again, that was Cayuga Before Summer Ends. I may be mispronouncing the first word in that. My wife is Greek, and I don't think even she knew how to pronounce it. What are you going to do? After that, I also saw a Portuguese film made by trans queer filmmakers, and that was called Two Times João Liberada. That's another one I really liked, and I would say it definitely does not fit into the... I don't mean to make everything around the framing of slow cinema, but it definitely didn't fit into that. This is another one that I think also plays very well with not just the film format, the structure of film, but just sort of the nature of movies and filmmaking itself. It is kind of an adaptation type where it is a behind the scenes movie with some supernatural elements and definitely some very like ironic turns. And it's using every part of the buffalo. It's using sort of every piece of sort of the kind of technology and format to tell its story in a way that is actually like diegetic. It is woven within the story in a meaningful way. I like that a lot. The filmmakers were, I think, very bold in the story they were telling. It's a story about, like media and how that intersects with queer identities. And that's always an important, kind of story to tell, especially now. And I liked that a lot. So that's another one I highly recommend to seek out. Two Times João Liberada. Following that, the very next night after I saw that one, I saw a series of shorts, and those were, I would say, like most short film programs at festivals, they're hit or miss. But here's my pro tip to you, the listener, when you're going to any film festival, always go to at least one program of short films, because I've gone to certain festivals that I won't name that a lot of the feature film programming can really stink, or just certainly be at a surprisingly kind of low level of quality than what you might have expected. And yet the short films are at least where you can get a good breath of fresh air and really see where some surprising talent may actually emerge later on. New directors is always very good for that, and I've seen some great stuff in the past. And usually, again, they're pulling from a lot of great sources, stuff that's already, of course, like been at Cannes and Berlin and all these other major festivals and won their awards. And so hopefully those directors are capitalizing off of that. In this case, this particular short program that I attended was definitely geared toward a specific theme, a through line amongst all four of them, which was immigration and sense of belonging and even sort of the, where dynamics of power intrude on that and or inflict themselves. And, it was rough going, watching some of that, knowing what's happening in our country right now. It's not a great feeling, but you got to face it. The last film of that I it was the longest by far. I believe it was over 40 minutes long, and it showed. And that was the one that, again, the director specifically cited Chantal Akerman as an influence, and as powerful and as potent as its message and content was. I do kind of feel like, hey, you could have tightened that up a bit. You could have gotten that down to a lean 25 minutes, and not have me just pulling at my skin to try to keep myself awake. I feel bad about that. I do, but here we are. Last two films that I saw this past Friday night, I saw a movie called No Sleep Till, which was by a young director, I believe French-American as she identified herself, named... Shoot. All right, I'll cheat a little bit and I'll look this up. Doop. Alexander Simpson, French-American director, who decided to tell a very quirky, again, very slow cinema film with Ackerman influences, set in a kind of apocalyptic Florida, which is to say Florida on any given day. And it uses the constant peril that Floridians are in terms of, storms and general climate change effects, to explore, the sort of identity of a community in these places. And in a lot of ways, I think it succeeds. In a lot of ways, I would say this is both intended and not intended to be backhanded. I would say it's interesting that you have a woman who, like, essentially mostly grew up in France and says she would spend summers in Florida, and having her lens pointed at Florida, which I would, identify myself as being, one of the two ground zeros that America has for the impending apocalypse, them in Texas, of course. It's funny to have her lens trying to make an intimate portrait of this place and this kind of people. And in certain ways it works. And in certain ways you can tell that this is a perspective from an outsider, where I think when she is trying to depict and identify a particular flavor or attitude or color within a community, I think she maybe, to me at least, it doesn't ring true. Granted, I'm not a Floridian, and maybe she has a little more experience with Floridians than I do, but let's just put it this way. I find it a little hard to buy the idea that in the Florida of here and now, which this movie is ostensibly, I guess, trying to portray, the Florida of here and now, I have a hard time buying that, let's say, a random homeowner would look at some long-haired guy sleeping in a pickup truck outside of their house and offer them a meal rather than sticking a shotgun in their face. That's sort of my take, and that might be a little unkind. That might be a little narrow-minded in my attitudes towards Florida, but it's Florida. They know what they did. They know what they're doing. They're still doing it. And the last film that I saw today at MoMA, the one film I saw at MoMA, everything else I saw at Film and Lincoln Center, was a film called Holy Electricity. It's a movie from Georgia, the country, not the state. And it admits itself that it is a kind of funky take on Paper Moon, that great Peter Bogdanovich film from the 70s with Tatum O'Neal and Ryan O'Neal. A distant family brought together and trying to scrape by in tough times and in a tough economy, by doing whatever you can to get by. Scrounging, grifting, appealing to people's desperation for religion as a way out. The movie is not nearly as tightly plotted as Paper Moon. It's definitely very loosey-goosey, and I think that's by design, and it works within that very well. It's Georgia is not a place you see depicted on film very often. I think most people have an image of that region of the world that this movie both sort of probably confirms a little bit, but then also challenges and gives you, again, as with No Sleep Till, a color and a sense of warmth and, a depiction of a culture and a community that you're a cynic like me would otherwise maybe have written off. Not in my case, I have nothing against the Georgian people. They're fine folks, I'm sure. Like anybody who isn't a Floridian. And, the one thing is, after a while, that loosey-goosiness does have the movie spinning its wheels a little too much. And it comes to a conclusion. It feels like maybe there could have been a little more to be told, or maybe a little less. I would have liked to see more. I feel like it was one of those movies where there was maybe like a scene or two missing that, you don't need everything wrapped up in a pretty little bow, but it would help at least in terms of what themes it's exploring to give you a sense of where each character is at least sort of landing within their approach to those themes of identity and maturity and responsibility and just survival in a place that is, subject to powers and influences beyond its control. And again, how, within the movie, like the main character starts selling these little glowing, light up neon crosses to people and with varying degrees of success. It's never exactly like a runaway business opportunity, but it certainly seems to at least keep them fed. And, that things like that it's not by accident that you use religious iconography to portray this kind of scrappy underdog story and how people can both benefit from and maybe abuse others in service to just protecting themselves. That's religion. Anyway, so now the festival is over. I'm going to try to put this up quickly after I finish recording it, if I've got time. Boy, I'm running around a lot lately. And I don't know. Please comment on this if you listen. Throw a like or a message my way. And let me know if you like hearing this, if you'd like to see me do more. There's plenty of other festivals coming up. The New York African Film Festival will also be at Film and Lincoln Center. There's the Asian Film Festival. Last couple months, there was the Jewish Film Festival and the Rendezvous with French Cinema Festival. And, I certainly I like going to these movies and I like having an excuse to yap about them as much as possible. Maybe it's not the most exciting thing for you to just hear my voice alone in the dark, talking. So if any of you happen to also be in the New York area and you want to come with me to these festivals, maybe we can do more of a cock and bull session around these things. I'd like that. Whether other listeners would, that's up for debate. But I will wrap it up here. This has been your festival report for New Directors, New Films 2025. I'm Alexander Scott, signing off.